As has been noted, young Robert H. Jackson's life path ran right through this site. In late 1913, 100 years ago this November, Robert Jackson, age 21, was admitted to the New York State Bar. He began to practice law in Jamestown and throughout the Southern Tier and in Erie County. In 1915, Jackson joined the bar of this court. In the Mayville, New York County courtroom, he met and came to impress greatly a new judge, Charles B. Sears of Buffalo, who was presiding there as a visiting judge. In 1916, Sears arranged for his former partners in the law firm then known as Penny, Killeen, and Nye, located in Buffalo's Ellicott Square building, to meet, recruit, and hire young lawyer Robert Jackson. And so Jackson moved to Buffalo. During 1917 and 1918, he and his wife Irene lived in the Lindhaven apartment building at 49 Johnson Park, just a little bit to our west and a few blocks up South Elmwood Avenue. In those years, Jackson's walk to work along Joseph Ellicott's planned streets of this city, designed and built during the 19th century, passed the Buffalo High School, today called Hutchinson Tech, which was built in 1913. Here at Niagara Square, Jackson passed the McKinley Memorial Obelisk, which was dedicated in 1906. And opposite the obelisk, he passed this spot. This all was then unimaginable, except perhaps to young Jackson himself. For 2 years in Buffalo, he tried cases and argued appeals on behalf of the Penny firm's principal client, the International Railway Company. He also began the friendships with Buffalo lawyers and leaders that deepened and lasted for the rest of his life. Then, in late 1918, young Jackson decided to return to Jamestown. The mayor, a Republican, recruited young Democrat Jackson, whom he knew well and admired, to be the city's attorney. I'll add parenthetically that on this day, that bipartisan behavior may be a powerful tale to focus on. More fundamentally, Jackson was convinced, moving to Jamestown, that he could rise higher in the legal profession faster from a base in Jamestown than he could in the large, nationally prominent bar of Buffalo. Of course, he was right. Soon he was arguing cases before the New York Court of Appeals. Its Chief Judge, Benjamin Cardozo, became a Jackson mentor. By the late 1920s, Jackson was a leading lawyer in this region and the president of the bar associations of all of Western New York, including Buffalo and Erie County. A few years later, he chaired the American Bar Association's National House of Delegates. In early 1934, President Franklin Roosevelt nominated, and the Senate confirmed Jackson to his first national government office. And you know the story from there. In March 1938, after Jackson was appointed Solicitor General, he received a congratulatory letter from a George Bailey of Buffalo. He was the retired court reporter of the New York State Supreme Court in this city. In 1917 and 1918, Bailey had been an Ellicott Square building neighbor of Jackson and the Penny law firm. In his letter, George Bailey recalled asking new Solicitor General Jackson once why he would give up such a fine berth with the Penny law firm to return to the sticks. Bailey recalled that Jackson said then, "It seemed for the best." As it appears, and appears, present tense, Bailey wrote, it was. Or to draw on another, more fictional George Bailey, you know him, the one from Bedford Falls, New York, the one on your television at Christmas time, the one whose story has more than a few Jacksonian dimensions. It's a Wonderful Life. Robert H. Jackson's legacy, his stirring, motivating life, and his major, eloquent, enduring contributions to law, in the U.S. and internationally, gets delivered and grows everywhere, including on the web and in individual minds and lives, and also in physical locations. They include these 10. The Robert H. Jackson Center in Jamestown, Chautauqua Institution, where Jackson learned and taught and recreated throughout his life. School classrooms and libraries from elementary to university, where Jackson is studied. Homes, offices, and social spaces where that study continues and where its effects are most tangible. People who learn their Jackson get smarter, inspired, and more competent, and their lives are better on the inside and as they conduct themselves for becoming connected with his. The government buildings where he served and where his name and his example and his words are alive, assisting and elevating the performances of his successors. Sixth, courthouses in New York State, from Mayville to federal district courts, to the New York Court of Appeals, to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Jackson litigated in each. Seventh, other state and federal courts throughout the country, including, of course, the Supreme Court of the United States. Jackson is a very vibrant figure in each. Eighth, the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, Germany, including its courtroom 600, Prosecutor Jackson's 1945-1946 courtroom, which thus became Humanities Courtroom, and is, we can hope, on its way to becoming a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Ninth, courts throughout the world, including international courts in The Hague and elsewhere, and local courts, even the most primitive, informal ones, which resemble the rural justice courts of Jackson's young lawyer days. And finally, 10th, now, most fittingly and visibly, this Robert H. Jackson United States Courthouse in the heart of Buffalo. In early summer 1937, Robert Jackson wrote a letter that fits the substance of today's occasion, which is not only Jackson's famous name and his high legacies in law and history, but the central place of the United States District Court in people's lives. In that June 1937, then Assistant Attorney General Jackson wrote to an old friend at the bar, the former Rochester City Attorney, Harold P. Burke. Days earlier, Burke had been appointed a judge of this court, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of New York. Judge Burke went on to serve on this court for 44 years, including 12 as its chief judge. After offering congratulations and best wishes, Robert Jackson added this comment to his friend Harold on the substance of Judge Burke's new position. Quote, "I think there is no post of greater usefulness than that of a district judge. They influence the lives of 1,000 people," Jackson wrote, while appellate judges are dealing only with a dozen. In this Jackson courthouse, in this district that was Robert Jackson's formative and lifelong legal and personal home, the judges will, for many, many years, influence lives for the better by administering equal justice under law. How Jacksonian and how apt this courthouse name. Thank you.